Welcome to Writer Reading for May 2026, Zombie Survival Awareness Month. This month I will be reading the chapters of How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady to Survive the Zombpocalypse. How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady to Survive the Zombpocalypse. Chapter 9. In her mind, Babs could almost see the trek through Mrs. Thorpe's words as she flipped the pages of the photo album. The grainy sepia images seemed to etch themselves into her consciousness and play like an old movie. After over 2 weeks of wandering back and forth across the arid, clay-baked desert, and in the unforgivable winds and cold nights, they found a box canyon containing a city with a carved temple in the end like the one at Petra. Covered with sand and rocks, it was obvious the city had been buried, but how was a source of great speculation and debate. Lord Carnarvon ordered the Royal Marines to begin to dig it out, because the papyrus describing the city insisted the cursed secret to restoring life to the dead was buried here. Some of the soldiers, annoyed by the large number of cats, began shooting them for sport when they weren't digging. A week into the discovery, 8-year-olds Theodora and Penelope couldn't stand it any longer. "Stop it!" Theodora screamed as she pulled on a soldier's rifle, then kicked him in the knee, and he let go. Penelope bent over the wounded desert cat, crying and holding her handkerchief over its injury. The cat meowed pitifully as the girl tried to staunch the flow of blood from where the bullet grazed it. "You barbarian! Easy, puss! Don't die!" Sergeant Major Lansing, head of the battalion, demanded, "What's going on here? Harris?" "He's killing them! He's killing the cats!" Theodora snapped, still holding the man's rifle. "They're just nuisances, no better than rats. There's no reason for the lassies to get upset." "No reason?" Angrily, Theodora raised the rifle and pointed it at him. "How about I shoot you for no reason?" Harris chuckled at her threat. Then she chambered around and raised it to her shoulder. "Easy, miss. You don't want to hurt someone on accident." "It's Lady Theodora, and if I shoot, it won't be an accident. I have hunted wood grouse and rabbits since I was 6 years old." "What's going on here?" Lord Carnarvon demanded as he strode up. "Theodora, we do not point rifles at people. Give it to me." Theodora looked about to refuse, but under her grandfather's stern glare she lowered the barrel and then handed the rifle to Sergeant Major Lansing. "He was shooting the desert cats, grandfather, for no reason. He and his fellows have been killing the children of Bast. I hope they get cursed." She stomped her foot as she shrieked loud enough that it echoed off the walls. Lansing glanced at Harris and the men behind him. "Is this true? I guess you aren't doing enough digging. Get back to the temple. You can work until the moon rises. Or would you rather face a court-martial?" "No, sir." The men saluted him, then stomped back toward the temple, grumbling. Lord Carnarvon knelt next to Penelope. Let's see the poor beast. He examined the wound. Well, it's torn his hide and maybe hurt the bones underneath. He'll need stitches and a bit of care. I'll take care of him, Penelope promised, as Theodora came back from the corner of a partially collapsed house. He was protecting these wee ones. I think their mother was the one I found shot and killed yesterday. She held the two kits. Can I keep them? The elderly lord and the soldier glanced at each other with a slight smile. Knowing having the cats to care for would keep the girls out of the way, they agreed. Half an hour later, the large male was stitched and resting comfortably while the kits drank canned milk mixed with water. Her grandfather and the sergeant major left to go back to the temple dig. Theodora looked at one of the papyrus rolls from Tutankhamun's tomb. What does it say? I can't read hieroglyphics, Penelope revealed as she held a bowl of water for the cat. I think I'll call him Sekhmet. Theodora didn't correct her that Sekhmet was a goddess, not a god. She supposed it didn't matter because there were no such things as gods and goddesses to be offended if the male cat was given the lioness goddess's name. It says, Prince Bakre dreamed of a stone like the sun's fire fell from the sky. Prince Bakre and his horsemen rode to a canyon where the walls sparkled like stars. Theodora paused, then asked, I wonder if that is this canyon. Grandfather says the walls are covered in a strange kind of volcanic glass. I've been to Pompeii. If this is a volcanic valley, where is the mountain? Penelope rubbed her head, not knowing, then insisted, Read the rest. The sunstone was broken and bled. Dust came from the blood of the sunstone. The dust gave eternal freshness to all foods harvested, and life after death to all who ate. The eaters of the dust walked and worked under the clouds and at night. Never in the sight of Khepri. They turned black around the lips and eyes. They became like ravenous wolves, biting everything with blood. Who's Khepri? Ra's giant beetle, which carries the sun across the sky in the day. Answering, then unrolling the papyri more, Theodora paused in confusion before she started on the next section. They could not die as men died, because as men they had died. What does that mean? Penelope demanded. That makes no sense at all. Unable to puzzle it out, Theodora kept translating. The keepers of the children of Bast escaped. Bast healed and protected all who were threatened by the Dust Eaters. Pharaoh King Mankur overcame Prince Bakre and all who followed him. The dead were cursed and shall be ever cursed for consuming the sunstone's blood and spreading its dust. Pharaoh King Mankur decreed seasons will pass, and none shall remember Prince Bakre's name nor his followers. The curse will be broken. Shifting the papyri, Theodora rolled and unrolled more, stopping at a gold-painted cartouche again. Pharaoh King Mankur decreed all will be prepared for death, so they will not wake again in this world. The gate of the underworld shall be crossed by all. Organs must be removed and weighed and stored. Bodies must be salted with natron until no water remains in their flesh. Limbs must be wrapped and bound. If this cannot be done before the 4th day, the body must be burned until it is ash, so the souls of the dead cannot dwell in this world." Theodora finished and shuddered. The last line says, "The children of Bast shall be left to guard the cursed city." Whispering, Penelope asked, "Do you think this place is really cursed?" "Don't be ridiculous," Theodora snapped. "It says the curse will be broken. It's just a story written to keep looters and tomb robbers away," she insisted with more confidence than she felt. Sitting down, she held her kittens in her lap. "Curses don't exist." Pouring herself some fresh tea, Babs picked out a few hairs, then sipped before she asked, "What happened then?" The next morning they reached the antechamber of the temple. All were shocked to see it filled with baskets of doomed dates and onions, dried meat and fish, and even loaves of bread. Piles of fine linens were folded on the benches. Everything was covered in a fine, purplish-black dust. I can still remember how everyone peered in at the torchlit discovery. Penelope started sneezing violently, so I followed her back outside. Mrs. Thorpe shook her head as she remembered. Penelope always suffered from mold making her cough after she survived pleurisy as a babe. She rubbed Wolfman's ear as she poured more tea and cream in her cup. After they washed the food and linens, they discovered everything was perfectly preserved after almost 5,000 years. The only thing spoiled in the whole temple was a vessel marked honey. Harris, the soldier I stopped from shooting Sekhmet, ate one of the dates in jest. He seemed unharmed the next day, so then everybody wanted to try them. Sekhmet scratched Penelope to keep her from eating one and knocked mine from my hand, so we didn't eat them. We didn't eat anything the cats wouldn't eat. Sergeant Major Lansing was the only one who believed us when we said something was wrong with the food from the temple. He didn't eat any of it either, because he said it made his tongue itch. People started acting weirdly, calmer. They worked slower, almost like they were in a trance. Soon, many were coughing and feverish. When Harris died and came back, he bit Lansing. They shot Harris up and burned his body. It made everyone realize why the city well was filled with bones and ash. My grandfather refused to let anyone leave because he was afraid of carrying the disease to the world, as happened with the Spanish flu. Lansing's wound festered with purple mucus, but then one night, Sekhmet and another cat tore off the bandages and licked the wound clean. He got better. The cats began attacking and hissing at the sick people. Anyone who ate the temple food developed a cough. She petted the giant cat on the arm of her chair, looking out the window at the gray sky for a long time. Babs looked out the window too, and noticed for the first time there were bars on the first floor windows. Looking down at the album, it sounded so horrible, and she couldn't imagine being so young and facing all of that. Mrs. Thorpe's voice was haunted when she spoke again. My grandfather was one of the last to get sick. His little dog Susie refused to leave him or let any of the cats near him. Lansing woke us up in the middle of the night and carried my grandfather out to one of the trucks. He was covered in blood and muttering about everyone else being dead and coming back. He said he had to stop them from escaping and told me to drive my grandfather straight to the fort in Cairo for medical treatment. "You could drive when you were 8?" Babs blurted out in surprise before sneezing twice. "Oh, yes. Grandfather taught me while we were looking for the lost city." Lansing had tied wooden blocks to the pedals for me. He gave us a map and told us not to stop except to put petrol in the truck. One of the dead soldiers grabbed Penelope and bit her arm before Sekhmet attacked him. She closed her eyes. He looked ghastly. Lansing shot him in the face, then cut off his head. He told me if my grandfather succumbed, I would have to do the same. I told him the papyri said the bodies were to be burned to ash or packed in salt like the mummies were made. He claimed he would do it, then decapitated another as he yelled at us to flee. The last time I saw him was in the rearview mirror. He had set one of the trucks on fire and was shooting the zombies while the children of Bast attacked them. Babs blew her nose and pulled her mask back down before asking, "How long did it take you to get to Cairo?" "Almost 5 days and nights. We only stopped when I couldn't stay awake. Sekhmet and the kittens licked Penelope's bite so it never got infected. I taught her how to drive, but she could only do it in the day because of her eyes. Then we met some Bedouin men. One guided us to the fort, but it was too late. My grandfather died before morning, and his little dog, too." The old lady sat very still as her hands worked the fur on the giant cat's ears. Finally she spoke. "Penelope and I cut off grandfather's head and packed his body in natron salt. Everyone always assumed the Egyptians did it. When we went back to school, Penelope and I started the Society of Cat Ladies. I always hoped this time would never come, but someone found Prince Pharaoh Bakre's city and the spore dust. I guess they put it in the food without properly testing it. The greedy fools killed us all to make money on food that never spoils. But everything comes at a cost." Babs thought about Lionel's article and asked, "There is this Navy blog. The guy claimed the Pharaoh's yeast extract came from outer space. It tells people not to eat any food preserved with it and to get a cat. He even knew the prince's name." He's not wrong. Ancient Egyptians believed meteorites were pieces of the sun. "I'm glad my boys listened to me." Mrs. Thorpe hummed happily. "What do you mean?" Babs was confused. "Lionel T. is your relative?" "He's my great-grandson, but you probably have heard me call him Lenny. His fraternal twin is Leo, but they are only half-brothers because my granddaughter is, or was, a cat-hating tart. I raised them in the summers when their mother was too busy chasing the next man in her life, then all year round once they started high school and college." She stood and pulled two pictures off another shelf, holding them out. Babs gaped at the two young men in college graduation robes and caps. In the second, they were gorgeous. One looked like a bodybuilder with bulky muscles, while the other looked like a triathlete with a leaner, toner build. Both were wearing Baltimore Marathon numbers. Babs would never have known they were brothers, let alone twins, if she wasn't told. This was the last year they held the marathon. Lenny made the top 25. Leo finished 2 hours later. Theodora smiled as she put the pictures back, fingers lingering over them. And Babs could see in the simple gesture how much she loved her great-grandsons. They know what to do to keep the Navy safe, and if Lenny is blogging about it, then his commanding officers listen to him. Before the phones went out, he and Leo called because the ship doctors wanted to know what I knew. Putting the second picture back, Theodora clicked her tongue as she looked out the window again. They haven't wandered off yet. I'm afraid you're going to be stuck here for the night. We'll find a place for you to sleep where the cats haven't been. Then tomorrow, you and I need to get supplies and pack the RV. Where are we going? Babs asked in bewilderment. Why, to Kitsap Naval Station in Washington, of course. That's where my boys are stationed. We need to get there so I can tell the Navy doctors everything I know about Prince Pharaoh Bakray's cursed fungus. Sleeping on a cot in a closet-sized basement room, holding the deep cycle batteries and inverter for the solar panels, was not a comfortable night, but Babs dreaded going out into the rest of the house. For most of the night, one or more of the cats scratched at the door or meowed, keeping Babs from sleeping peacefully. Not that she would have slept peacefully, knowing the majority of Baltimore's and possibly the country's population had been turned into never-decaying fungus zombies. Babs, Poppet, wake up! Coffee is on! Mrs. Thorpe called down the stairs in a freakishly cheerful voice. Groaning, Babs rolled over on the tiny cot. She was grateful the cats couldn't get in as another clawed at the door and mewed plaintively. Standing, she rolled up the sleeping bag and stuffed it inside its carry sack, hoping to keep one thing free of cat hair. She put the pillow inside a plastic bag, then put on her clothes and mask. She prayed fervently the undead of Upper Fells Point had gone back to Patterson Park so she could escape back to her library. She really didn't want to go on a road trip across the country in winter with Mrs. Thorpe. It wasn't that she disliked the centenarian. She found her fascinating, even if she was a bit senile. It was because she was violently allergic to the elderly woman's Clowder of Cats, which Babs now knew they would have no choice but to take with them. Cats. Why did it have to be cats? Why couldn't orchids or turtles or even spiders be the thing to save us from the zombie apocalypse? Babs muttered as she tied her shoes. Next, Chapter 10.